So the shark eventually came up on the sand, the waves receded, it was that knackered. But if you're doing that, you're at risk of losing it. What you really want to do is just time it, and when you see it in kind of this much water, run in and gaff it. Everybody's feet are going to get wet. There's no stopping that. The best thing that you can never ever wear waders in this kind of fishing. These beaches that I surf, these beaches that I fish, are hairy surf beaches. You wouldn't be able to swim in them without a board. So if you wore waders or gum boots and you got knocked over by one of those shore breaks, you'll drown and die pretty quickly. We take dogs with us, and we put glow sticks on the dogs, because if the dogs go in, then the dogs can be idiots, especially stuffies and things like that. You'll never get them back. It's a board only, life jacket only kind of if you get in the water fishing. You could probably say, yeah, I'll swim across the rip and get back in, but it's that turbulent where you want to be doing this kind of fishing that just wear shoes. The best thing I wear is blunt stones and thick socks, and you're walking up and down the beach, changing, casting so much. By the time you get back to the car, your feet are pretty much dry because you're moving so much. And it knackers you. Soft sand, all that kind of thing. So pack light, only take what you need, because once you start, if you do go and start doing Google Earth and looking for these beaches, you'll realise that there's big tracks. And that's the best thing about it, is that no one goes to them. This is pretty much, these beaches are untouched, no one's fishing them, it's not copping a whole heap of pressure. You'll find that they're clean beaches, and they're absolutely everywhere from the east to the west. So anyway, once you've gaffed it, just make sure that if the line was coming this way and the shark was here, always get your gaff man to come from the other side of the line, because the gaff man can often knock the hooks or break the line if he comes around the wrong way. So come around from that way. Try and gaff it in the head so you're not poking your guts and ruining your flesh, because gummy sharks are great to eat when you want to eat it. Drag him back up to the beach as fast as you can, just in case he comes off. Make sure it's a sharp gaff, because you'll be surprised they've got tough skin. And then you're ready to go. When it comes to bleeding it, as you'll see here, I don't do the whole cut across the top of the head. You don't need to do that. This fish here, where was it? The one that was on the fly, I just saw it. Yeah, that fish has been bled. It's been perfectly bled, and it looks like it's just come out of the water. You just basically go up through the gill, inside the gills, and then just cut upwards. As you can see, that hits a major artery, and there's absolutely blood everywhere, and it bleeds out quickly. If you want to be humane, you can dong it as well. And then all I do, obviously, like I said, it's a big walk to get it back. I have garbage bags with me. I use like a hunting knife. I slice off all the fins. There's a bone you'll feel around here, like in the back of its neck. You just cut around that bone, you slice down the belly, and the whole head and the belly and all the guts will just come out in one big piece, and you throw it back in the circle with all the fins, and you just take home a tube, and all you're going to have left at home when you take all your fillets off is 2 bits of skin and 1 little bit of cartilage that goes into like a Safeway bag and goes in the bin. And then you've got all your beautiful fillets, and you can cut them thin or thick, however you want them. That's the basic gist of how I do it. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone's got any.
Considering that you're close to full moon and all that every time, do you have much trouble with like sea lice or crabs and so on?
Yeah, crabs.
Attacking your baits?
Crabs on the full moon. I'll still fish on a full moon, because it's nice to really on the full moon. Crabs will be a problem. The other thing is there's crabs out everywhere, so that's bringing gummies around. Yeah. So you just got to keep changing your bait. Like this gentleman was saying earlier, if you do want to go fishing on a full moon, you've got a lot of crabs around. The best bait that you can use is eel, because it's probably the toughest. And again, squid's really tough too. The other dynamite bait, if anybody fishes like tuna for Portland and all that kind of thing, is tuna belly flap salted. Has probably been one of the other, I'd call it the second best bait, and that's a tougher bait too. So you want to fish tough baits. Salting fillets and stuff is a really good way to go on preserving them. It makes them tough. But yeah, you can occasionally, I only once had issues with lice. I don't know why, because I've fished other full moons when I don't get them. I don't really know how lice move and how they work, but it's happened here once or twice.
I'm guessing that swell would probably put them off a bit if you've got a fair bit of churn going through.
Yeah, you just don't really have that stillness for the lice to be a problem. So unfortunately, fishing in these conditions, it's generally smack in your face or coming sideways, so you've got to rug up and dress pretty warm. If you're moving so much, it keeps you fit this fishing, because you're moving in wet sand in gear. You don't really feel the cold unless not much is happening.
How often should you just use baits?
As little as possible, unless that glow stick's telling you that something's going on. I just leave it there. Yeah, and that's the other thing that you know, I know it's fishing basics 101, but the longer your bait's in the water, the better chance you have. But if you feel the sinker doesn't set, it's probably one of the hardest things with this kind of fishing is the casting distance instead in the sinker. If you feel the sinker hasn't set, just reset it. Bring it back, reset it. You'll know when it sets too, because you just cast, wait for it to settle, wind, and you can do that with your rod and you'll instantly feel that weight. When you've got that pressure on and your line's tight, that's when you hit your free spool and you just walk back with it gently up to your sand spike. And you're always walking uphill. You always want that. Yeah, you're always walking back up.
You only use one rod? Is that you can't really use two in this type of fishing?
Yeah, I've tried 3, 4. That's one. Yeah. So I simplified it over the years to one rod, no burley. The best thing about no burley is not having to carry the stinky shit all the way down there. And it really does bring pests. I know a guy that loves doing this fishing, doesn't have a boat. His life's all about land-based fishing. Spends all summer in this time of year trying to catch them, constantly catching Port Jackson, 7 gills, stingrays, everything. You know, I've told him he still will not agree, still wants the burley, he just brings around the pests. Gummy sharks, you know, he's kind of like a vacuum greedy guts, but he still wants a fresh bait, whereas the stingray and all the other stuff doesn't care, it's happy eating all the old stinky kind of stuff. If you really did want a burley, the best thing I'd suggest is like a whole bonito or something like that, buried in the sand on a spike and let it slowly waft out. But the whole tuna royal and chunks and bits like that, I'm not that into it. You can get yourself a crab and bring one in, yeah, it's probably the best bait that you could get is a crab or half a crab.
So you said squid heads and whatever, good bait.
Yeah.
How many would you take for a night?
I generally, if I can't catch them, I go to the market and I buy 8 at a minimum, depending on what size they are.
And that would do your 4 hours.
Yeah, because you got to think you will always lose bait on the cast.
Yep.
Not every cast is going to be perfect, and you'll watch your bait fly off because you are just putting it through that hook once. You know, and then they get chewed up or whatever. They get a bit beat up. You want it to be fresher. Yeah. So if you can't catch it, go to the market. You spend that little bit extra. You got to think you're not spending money on fuel like a guy on a boat would, so just spend a bit extra on bait from the market.
Oh,
But I tell you, some of the markets, I wonder how they can actually sell the stuff for human consumption. But sniff it first before you before you buy it.
You wouldn't use bait mate at all, would you?
No, the baits are too big.
So how would you hold that bait mate? You can stretch it around.
Yeah, but if you're using a whole strip of squid that big or a squid head, because you want it to waft like that, you'd just never get it. You could maybe do the bait mate around, but it would probably bunch up your bait that too much, and it wouldn't have that nice waft.
Because I do use bait mate, but I use 2 hooks. It's just a bit easier if you can hook it through like a smaller top hook.
Yeah.
With a large one down the bottom.
So you're running a running sinker, are you?
That hook length a bit.
You're running a running sinker.
Bully rigs.
Bully rigs.
Yeah.
So how does that rig work?
Basically, you've got like a little tip on the top of your sinker.
Yep.
That the hook actually clips into, and like a pulley in the top.
Oh, pulley rigs. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
So-
that gives you the better casting distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I haven't really used
in
the
the water. In the water, it's not too much difference. So yeah, it's like a Atmos in the way.
Yeah, when it all comes
just
apart.
a bit extra.
Yeah, Black Magic make them now. You can buy them in a packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't used them yet. Yeah, mate.
What about overhead or spin rods? What's the...
Spin with those kind of reels, you'll cast further. As you can see, we used to use overheads every now and then. You know, that's an overhead. That was in a gutter that was right at my feet. And you can literally sometimes find a gutter that's from here to that wall there, and you'll catch them there. That one came from that place. If anyone's ever used a 7000 with the line guide still in it, you'll know you can't cast those very far with 8 ounces on them. But yeah, I mean, now you've got those surf reels that's going around somewhere. They just cast so far with so much less effort. It's not fun.
So with the, you're saying crabs are a good bait.
Yeah.
How would you hold the crab on the hook? How do you-
Cut it in half, and
Oh, I see.
then basically up through a leg cavity, and then out the side, or you could pretty much through the leg cavity, and then out the underbelly of it.
Do you only ever use one hook on a proper rig?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd always be worried about.
You wouldn't want to
I'd
get 2 of
never
those on.
I'd never be able to cast 2 baits. You know, it's pretty heavy. You'll be surprised that once you wrap that 6 ounce sinker on, or even a 7 or an 8 ounce sinker plus the big bait, yeah. Essentially, you want to cast the biggest bait you can to the distance that you need to get to. So you might sometimes have to cut the baits down if the hole or the gutter's a fair way out. I have to make it a little bit smaller so I can cast the weight. If it's right in front of me, I'll cast the absolute biggest bait that I can. Bigger bait's going to be more appealing, smell better, more smell, and all that kind of thing. And generally, bigger baits catch a bigger fish.
When you talk about eel baits, that's usually cured eel.
Cured.
Is that just salt, or is there
I don't
some
know.
trick to it?
I don't know, I've only ever bought it from the shop. I generally don't like using it because once it's on, you'll never get the skin back off your hook.
It is salt.
Yeah,
It's salt.
they actually
They
salt.
salt it in water for a day, and then they chuck it on ice.
Yeah, don't they also put it through tuna oil as well after it's
Otherwise.
over.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff you buy from the
Some do.
shop soaked in your tuna oil or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
Did you
I
freeze
think
anything
its
the weekend?
toughness
Hey?
is
Did you freeze
probably
anything the
its
weekend?
greatest
No, it's all
attribute. I
smoked.
wouldn't say that
Yeah.
its scent's going to be better than fresh squid or fresh tuna or fresh salmon fillet or something. But I mean, I'd say pretty much, you know, most of those and all the other ones I've caught, 90% of the gummies I've caught have come from squid baits. Yeah.
In terms of like distance, like say if you've got a rip coming into the beach, so obviously he's going out a fair way, is there any advantage to trying to cast out a bit further into maybe some slightly deeper water rather than just plonking it in close?
Yeah, the deeper you can get it, the better.
Yeah.
I think that the fish are definitely sitting in deeper water. So if you see, like you'll often see like a dogleg kind of gutter that will start like this and then a bit deeper out and then it runs out to the deep water.
A bit of
Yeah.
sandbar.
Yeah, and then there'll be sand in the middle here. If you can get it out over that sand and into the deep water, that's the ultimate place for it to be. The deeper and the further you can get it, you know, well, you don't want to go stupid far, but you know, as far as you can cast into that deep water is the best. Generally, when I see, I've always found that a gutter that runs out and works like this and then moves back out and you see it running out is almost like a highway for the gummies to come in on and pick up those crabs, and that's what I'll try and cast into. Look, this is stock standard tackle store gear for doing distance casting of big baits. There's guys there's specialist rods and specialist reels, and they have special overheads that they'll use to do distance casting. I'm not that into it, but you know, I want to bother doing that stuff. I don't think you need to.
Down at Colac a month ago now, probably. Young blokes fishing in the creek off the lake, catching carp. And I said, what are you doing there, mate? He said, oh, me and my dad go out using the heads for shark fishing.
Yeah.
So, how does carp fit in with this as a bait? Or
I
does
don't
it?
know. I've never used
You don't
it.
know.
I don't know. I wouldn't need it, but
No.
yeah, probably, you know what? The gummy sharks are really different to